Thanks for tuning in to the EquiRatings Eventing podcast. We're delighted that the EquiRatings coverage of the 2023 Eventing European Championships is brought to you by three of our fantastic brand partners: Ride IQ, Agria Equine Insurance, and of course, Connolly's Red Mills. Now listeners, let's talk insurance for just a moment, because we all want to make sure that our horses are as well looked after as they possibly can be. And let's be totally honest, while we hope that we never need to call upon insurance, with horses you can never be too sure. And that is why we have teamed up with Agria as one of our partners for the Eventing Europeans coverage, because they're the only insurance provider within the UK that offers lifetime equine insurance. They stand by their mission to provide the best possible care for horses and all pets as well, and importantly, peace of mind for owners. It's a market they know really well because the company first started in Sweden back in 1890, and Agria have a really tailored approach to keeping things simple and uncomplicated, which, listeners, as I'm sure you can agree, is music to everyone's ears. We all love simple and uncomplicated. So if you'd like to find out more, why don't you go and pay a visit to agriapet.co.uk.
The crowds are back. It's a British winner. It's one of the most popular young riders in our sport, an Olympic gold medalist, Laura Collett, and London 52.
She's done it. Nicola Wilson is the individual European champion for 2021 with the 10-year-old JL Dublin. She has made history, and it's a 1-2-3 for Great Britain.
Michael Young comes into the main arena, there will be few cheers louder than this today. Fisher Chipmunk FRH.
And he's got it. Well, it's a fairy tale for the 25-year-olds from Great Britain. But in the individual, a nail-biting finish, just 0.1 seconds in it for Christina Cook to win from Piggy French and from Michael Young in third.
So as we build up to the European Championships in Haras Du Pin, we're going to take you behind the scenes. And I am properly behind the scenes, listeners, because I am sat in the lorry of one of the hot favourites for this year's European Championship. She's frowning at me. Laura Collett, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
We are at Bergam. The rain is coming down again outside, but we are a couple of weeks out from the Europeans now. Before we talk about Haras Du Pin, I actually want to go back a few months, because this spring feels like it has been a real roller coaster for many reasons. But actually, your spring plan originally was to go to Badminton to defend your title that you won with London back in 2022. Things didn't quite go to plan. Did it feel as much of a roller coaster for you living it?
To be honest, it probably actually felt like a massive relief when he had a big old overreach, because nothing had quite happened in the spring as it was meant to, and I knew it was getting closer and closer to Badminton, and it was feeling more and more like I knew he hadn't had the prep that I know he needs, and it was obviously going to be a huge amount of pressure going back off the back of last year anyway. So when there was a very valid reason not to go to Badminton, it was kind of like, okay, now we just regroup. And obviously the first thing was that I was just glad he was actually okay. It was just it was quite a major overreach, but it was minor in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, it was like very kind of easy to get my head round, because nothing had felt like it was going right. So it was just like, right, well, we can just forget about Badminton now and try and win a different 5-star instead.
It feels like almost you have that plan and you kind of get to the point of that sort of square peg round hole of that was the plan, but actually you need to change the plan, and kind of everything was telling you that actually it wasn't meant to be. Yeah,
totally. Like leading up to Badminton last year, absolutely everything just felt like it was like ticking boxes of perfect prep runs. He was feeling amazing. Everything that I'd wanted to, happen happened, and went there thinking, well, it's now or never. Like, he couldn't be in any better form, and we'll just see what happens, kind of thing. Where it was complete opposite this spring, leading up to it. So yeah, it was nice to be able to just draw a line and forget about it, really.
And as it happened, it was such a wet badminton anyway. I'm sure on Sunday afternoon you were probably sat there thinking, this is lovely, pass me the wine.
Yeah, I was sat drinking a gin and tonic in the Horse Trial support group, having made the decision not to run to Capo because he hates the mud. I was feeling very smug, sat watching it all unfold thinking, I'm really glad Dan clearly is really clever and read the weather report and decided that, mud was not for him. So give himself a cheeky little overreach and miss the whole thing.
And was the plan always, after the overreach, actually, when you knew he was going to be okay and the timing worked out, to go to Luhmühlen for 5-star?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the obvious thing to do. It's the timing of it worked out perfectly. He needed to go and do something, obviously, to try and put right what happened at WEG last year, and to go back to Luhmühlen after what happened at the Europeans was like try and put demons to bed there as well. So yeah, it was just crack on and full systems go for Luhmühlen.
Did you feel the pressure, bearing in mind that there'd obviously been the 20 penalties in Protoni and Protoni hadn't gone to plan for the British team full stop, that actually coming into this year you really needed to pull something out the bag?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, with every time I get on that horse, it feels like there's a lot of pressure because he is a superstar, and everything that he's done, there's always, such a high expectation. But I think going to Luhmühlen, I felt like it was more personal pressure, things that I needed to put right in for me, rather than actually any outside kind of pressure. I guess some people after the Worlds said, I say every horse makes a mistake. A lot of people were like, oh well, he's not as good as thought he was, and things like that. So it was more for me and for my own kind of self.
but actually, by delivering for yourself and kind of putting those things right in your mind, actually that is twofold, because it actually would have answered any of the naysayers anyway. Yeah,
like at the end of the day, I'll try not to worry too much about what other people think, because I in the past have driven myself insane by doing that. So like I said, I went to Luhmühlen. I very much had an aim of trying to win it, because he'd won Po and he'd won badminton, so I thought, well, Luhmühlen would be nice as well, and also wanted to try and get another record and finishing score, because he seems to be quite good at doing that. So I went there with personal ambitions that I wouldn't have said to anybody else, but they were very much in the back of my mind for sure.
I love that, actually, because the actual, obviously everybody listening to this show knows Echo Ratings love the numbers, but actually when you're putting it into context of those kind of world records and what it means to you as an elite athlete, actually it's huge as well.
Yeah, and I think I remember after the first day of dressage, obviously had De Capo there. I thought he'd done a lovely test and he got, I don't know, a 28 or something. It very much felt that the judging was pretty harsh in Luhmühlen, and I thought, oh, that's really annoying. I'm not going to be able to break the records because the judges are real grumpy.
Let's talk about the first phase in the dressage, because 20.3, not quite a record. It was a Luhmühlen record. It was an improvement on your badminton score as well. What was the feeling like? Do you get to enjoy that dressage test with him?
I did in Luhmühlen. For me, whatever the numbers say, that was by far the best test he's ever done. It was better than the test he did at the Worlds, and he was a little monkey actually just as I went into the kind of 10-minute final warm-up area. He just completely lost the plot and was being really quite naughty. And I sort of looked at Dickie and he looked at me and I was like, I've lost him. He was like, I can see. And literally they said 3 minutes till you go over, and he just took a deep breath. I think he was just playing with me, to be honest, and just completely slotted into place. He went in the arena and he was, it really was, I was definitely smiling through it, and everything just, it felt easy, and dressage doesn't normally feel easy, and finally nailed his first centre line, which has been a massive thing with Carl Hester, and I just remember stopping and thinking, well, at least Carl's going to be happy now, and then the rest was just, it was a joy to ride.
Can I ask you about the influence that Carl has had on your test riding? Because you've always been very good in the first phase. You've been able to produce some really good numbers, but it feels like the next level. What have you taken from working with him that we're seeing actually translate through to the scores now?
think it's just the fine tuning. I guess when I first went there, I probably only had 5 or 6 lessons with him, but he's such a perfectionist. You know, like I'd ride something and think, I've done quite a good job there, and he'd be like, well, what is that? And he makes you realise how much more there is, and not to be satisfied with mediocre. And it's really fun to have a lesson with him because he takes the mick. And you know, I was there last week, and we were just trying to do the flying changes for the test at the Europeans, and he was like, well, basically all you need is me just counting you. And I was like, well, yes, that's no problem. But yeah, like we get on really well, and it's just, yeah, it definitely has brought another level to it. But I think it's just unlocked things that I thought were good, but he showed they could be better.
I love that actually we've all got an insight that when you're doing a flying changes at the Europeans, you're going to be channeling your inner Carl Hester counting in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. He said to me one of the first times we went, he goes, it's so simple, it's just like riding a stride to a fence. And I just turned around and said, well, I can't see a stride to a fence, so that's where the problem lies. So yeah, we'll definitely hopefully count the right numbers.
How much more is there in there? Because I mean, scoring 20, sub 20 regularly at that kind of level, you're obviously a perfectionist. Carl Hester is a perfectionist. Is there much more?
If I get everything right, there's more for sure. There's, like I said, Luhmühlen, I thought he was the best he's been, and the judges were definitely marking a bit harsh on all the scores. So yeah, I mean, we'll try and get better.
God help everybody else, listeners, that's all I can say. What about the feeling going out on cross country? Because you'd done what you needed to do in the first phase, you were out in front very comfortably, so you had a late draw with London. What was the feeling like in that start box when the starter is counting you down?
Weirdly, I was actually quite relaxed. I don't know, just from the moment, almost like the moment he had the overreach, it just felt like it was meant to be. Luhmühlen was meant to be. Everything after having the overreach had gone to plan. He'd had 2 really good OI runs. He'd been incredible at Bicton, and it was just another moment that felt like everything had slotted into place, and go there and just very much know that I couldn't have done any more, and it was just kind of go and see what happens now.
Did you get to enjoy the cross country as well?
Yeah, I did actually. He's a phenomenal horse, and he's got so good at knowing what I want him to do now, and I know I have to just make sure I give him the right instructions. But he cruised around there, and he made it feel easy, and that's, again, doesn't often happen at a 5-star, but it was the first time that nothing had there hadn't been a bit of a moment, shall we say, on the cross country. At Badminton, I rode like an idiot, and he left a leg at the quarry, and
your core strength was quite frankly very impressive.
A bit of a wake up call. The same thing at the corners at Poe. Had a bit of a miss at that, and left the leg and twisted, and all those things where you feel like it very nearly could have gone the other way. There was none of that at Luhmühlen. He was the out-and-out winner, and no one could take anything away from him. And for me, that was what just was really nice, because for me, he's a horse that deserves to win like that.
There's nothing, I think, quite like a 5-star where you lead from the front. Is that fair to say? Because it is very much, you're not sort of benefiting from anybody else's misfortune. You have started out in front, you stay out in front. And actually, he finished very comfortably ahead of the fields. I think you had a fence in hand on the final day as well. You didn't need it.
Really nice having a fence in hand.
Do you like it?
Having a fence in hand?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there, because I often wonder about this, that if you then had the first or something, that that makes it even worse?
Well, it would, yeah. But, I think, if you had to choose whether you have a fence in hand or not a fence in hand, I'd definitely choose to have a fence in hand.
Very good point, to be fair. That was a fairly silly question, listeners. I'll hold my hands up for that one. Can I ask, though, his record at 5-star is, quite frankly, out of this world now. You said you were going there to break a record. I mean, he didn't quite get Michael Young's Kentucky 20.1, which I know, I can tell listeners, is still really bothering her.
Really
Laura's coming for this record, listeners. But he has 3 of the best finishing scores at 5-star of the top 4 in the world. Second, third and fourth. I mean, he's done a 20.3, a 21.3 and a 21.4. His power average is going to be like sub 21 or something. I mean, that is just insane at 5-star level. When you hear it put in those kinds of words and you see the numbers behind it, do you kind of have to pinch yourself and go, actually, this is something pretty special. This might not ever happen again?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of get shivers down my spine listening to you say it, and it doesn't, like, it kind of doesn't feel real. Like, I've known from the moment I sat on him, he's a really, really special horse, and I'm just glad that he's doing things and putting, you know, numbers on the board like that prove that he is just as good as I always thought he was.
I'm actually, listeners, going to give Dee some credit. There was a moment in a Belton preview show. Laura's nodding her head. Dee's probably dined out on this for quite some time. Belton preview show, I want to say like 2017, 2018, when he went to do an intermediate at Belton. We're going to dig it out for you, listeners. Sorry, Rosie. But basically, that you had this really exciting new horse, had a lot of the same owners as Mr. Bass, and, you know, very much one to watch for the future. And if you look back, whether it was 4, 5, 6 years ago, however long it was, actually, it's kind of exceeded any kind of dreams and expectations. And there's so much more, hopefully, touching the listeners, still to come.
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's, I think he's that kind of horse because he's so beautiful and he's such a show off. He doesn't just go out and do his job, he catches the eye, and so then, you know, he's one of those that from the very beginning he was one that people always, you know, noticed, which is probably why it was so hard when things didn't always go to plan, because it was always very much in the public eye and noticed, but that's what kind of makes the things that have happened in the last 2 or 3 years even more special.
How mentally tough is that?
Very.
How do you cope with it? How do you manage it?
I guess I sit there and I think, would I change sitting on that horse? No. So ride the roller coaster.
Ride the roller coaster. It is a real roller coaster. Do you feel like there's unfinished business at the Europeans?
Yep, I still haven't won an individual medal at the Senior Europeans, so it's always been a dream.
Incoming listeners, fingers crossed. A word on your team, because I think there was a lot of emotion after that Luhmühlen victory. You always get it at a 5-star anyway, but it felt like people watching in could really feel it. Tilly has been a massive part. Susie Cooper as well was out there. Your mum. The whole team plays such a big role. What does it mean to them, actually, when you have days like that?
I guess they all know exactly what it means to me and what I want to achieve and what I kind of have been through as well with the roller coaster and things. So I think as much as anything, they're probably so relieved, because I'm a bit of a nightmare when things don't go to plan.
We can live with her, it's fine.
Like, oh, she's going to be all right for the next few weeks. So yeah, I think it's, you know, everybody puts so much into it, and they know what it means, and I think that's why it kind of just does get a bit emotional.
And what about sort of post Luhmühlen? The Europeans, pretty quick turnaround. So what have the last few weeks looked like? Looked like? I'll put my teeth back in, listeners. Looked like at home.
They've gone very quickly. Yeah, like Dan had a couple of very easy weeks. I think he had a week off, a couple of weeks just hacking, and then he started being really quite naughty, so he started doing a bit more work, and yeah, he's very quick to go feral. I had a dressage.
Sounds like my 4-year-old, to be fair.
Yeah, I had a dressage lesson with Ian, like probably 3 weeks after Luhmühlen, and he was an absolute disgrace, and Ian was laughing because I was like, I just hate him, he's so naughty, and he was like, you also love him, and he's also your best horse, and he's also just won you a 5-star. I was like, I know, but he's an absolute disgrace, because he really didn't need to behave quite as atrociously as he did, but that's him. Like, he's got, now we kind of have to let him have those moments of naughtiness to be able to then ramp up, and it's very much a matter of peaking at the right time and not trying to get him amazing 2 weeks out, because he can't hold it for that long. So it's taken a good few years to be able to, I guess Tokyo for me was the turning point of learning that being amazing and being able to ride a dressage test on 3 days before you need to ride a dressage test is not when you need to be doing it. So yeah, it takes, and in Luhmühlen I think that was probably tested to the max. The day before his test he was nowhere near ready to go and do a dressage test, and I ummed and ahed about whether to ride him a second time, and I was like, no, I'm going to stick to my guns and see what happens. And you know, he came out and he was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it now.
Do you think now he is that little bit older, he's got quite a lot of exposure to top level competition, do you think he actually knows?
Yeah, he knows when it matters. He absolutely loves the crowd. I think the way he was so cheeky in the warm-up arena, it was just, for him it was a bit of a joke, and the second
Dan, very funny.
I was not laughing, neither was Dicky, but literally the second he went through into the arena and they saw the crowd, he was like, well, now it's time to perform and show off. So yeah, he's got very wise to it, and I just have to trust that.
So what about the next couple of weeks? We are obviously talking Belgium weekend, which is the end of July. Listeners, this will be going out in a few days' time, so a little bit will have happened in the meantime. It feels like it's coming up pretty quick. Don't need to tell you that because the ice just widened. Don't need to rub salt in it. But what did the next couple of weeks look like pre Haras Du Pin?
Stay in one piece here at Belgium. Try not to fall off. Have a B100 on Sunday at Dauncey, and then actually not competing next week. Squad training, I want to say Wednesday, Thursday, bit of galloping, another car lesson, and then leave on the Monday. So you say 2 weeks, but
it goes in a flash.
2 weeks is, yeah, we'll be at the Europeans hopefully. So
nothing.
Yeah.
And what's the plan for the horses to travel over there?
So I think we're going on the tunnel, pairing up, I think 2 horses on the lorry, and yeah, I think riders can choose whether they want to go in the lorry with the horses. I'll travel with Tilly and Dan in the lorry, and then get out there Monday afternoon and let the games begin.
Let the games begin. Can I ask, British team, I mean, there's a lot of pressure, I think, around the British team, a lot of expectation. It was a record finishing score when the team won gold in Tokyo. Protoni was a disappointment. The team went in very much as favourites for gold, and I'm sure there was, you know, some pretty obvious conversations afterwards of, okay, it's happened, we've got the qualification for Paris, but it wasn't the gold medal that we wanted. What's the feeling like now going into the Europeans? Does it feel like there's a bit of a point to prove?
Obviously there's a point to prove, but like you said, we went into Tokyo as hot favourites and pulled it off. We went into Worlds as hot favourites. You know, you wouldn't have bet against the team that went there, and we all, apart from Raz, I'd say, you know, on the team we all had, on, as we'd all say, an absolute nightmare, and nothing went to plan as we would have wanted or expected. So, but that's horses at the end of the day, and yeah, there is, you know, from a personal point of view, there's a massive point to prove, and hopefully we can go and do it.
It was interesting. We had Dicky on the show post Protoni last year, and he was very much, it's better now than in Paris. It's better now than, you know, even 12 months out from Paris of having that blip. And actually, nobody can be perfect all of the time. So it's how do we make sure that we are as in a competitive position come the Europeans, come Paris as next year. Have you even dared dream of Paris and a second Olympic Games?
Yes and no. Try not to, but yeah, obviously, like, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't dreamed of it, but it would be just as much of a dream as Tokyo was a dream. And if you'd asked me a year out from Tokyo, did I think it was going to happen? Absolutely not. So I guess the thing I've learned over the last couple of years is you can never dream too big, so keep on dreaming.
I think, listeners, that about sums it up. You can never dream too big, so keep on dreaming. Laura, thank you so much. Good luck for the next couple of weeks. And thank you for giving us a really candid insight into what the last couple of months have been like.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Now, listeners, have you ever felt like you're training with your horse at home and you're just not quite sure what to do next or how to get the results that you're looking for? Well, we have all been there, me in particular, not going to lie, which is why we're delighted to welcome Ride IQ on board as partners for our European coverage this year. Their online platform offers on-demand audio with lessons taught by top equestrian coaches from all over the world. The likes of their team includes Olympians like Leslie Law, Doug Payne, Gina Smith and Kyle Carter. So many top riders. Things like this little gem from John Holling on a light flat work lesson give you a taste of what might be in store for you.
Careful you don't lean to the inside, lift your inside shoulder. And if you feel like you are leaning a little bit, one little trick that sometimes helps is you tip your head a little bit and lift that inside ear. And your shoulder usually will follow. And then put your head back on straight, looking out through your horse's ears. And when you're ready, I want you to prepare for sitting trot. And let's sit 10 steps. And rise. Good, and the goal there, like we've worked on in the past, is that trot stays the same, right?
So if you feel like you're quite literally going around in circles, pardon the pun, I feel like I should do a little drum roll, then why not give it a go and take advantage of a huge amount of help with everything from your dressage, jumping, groundwork, rider fitness, and even a little bit of sports psychology in there too. It is completely free to trial the app for 14 days. So quite frankly, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. Plus, if you like it, then you can always use the code EquiRatings20 for 20% off your first month's subscription. Head to ride-iq.com for more.
Hey, I'm Sarah Watley and I'm head girl for Aylesbury. My favourite Cars AMR product is medicated shampoo. We use it every day after horses are worked, helps get all the grease and grime out of the coat and any little scabs.